Um, I have given myself the challenge to describe. I've talked about the theme of objectivity and subjectivity in observation, uh, in scientific or human or sciences that have to do with human humaniora or natural sciences. It's not the same when it comes to objectivity and subjectivity. I've written a lot down here. There's the subject, which we are subjective. We see ourselves, human beings, as subjects, uh, egos, not objects. That would be degrading to see another person as an object. But in observation, you have to be objective, which means you reduce the observed to an object, and also you reduce yourself. And I've written down, try to put into words here, that you see the subject as an object, or the subject is seen as an object, seen by seen through eyes of um, an objective subject, unattached or detached from her own life and emotions of being a co-human or contra-human, that which is very difficult because we are caught in our own life situations. We are caught, not caught, but uh, we are the sum of what we have lived and what we are living, and what conclusions we have reached from the past situation and the conclusions we are drawing in the present situation of experience, and we are in the present situation occupied with something personally that affects our perception. What do we see, which is also affected by past experience and conclusions, and the formed ego, and thereby values. And we don't talk about virtues, do we? But values have replaced virtues. Virtues was something, what do you do, how do you behave? That's norms nowadays. But norms are different. It's dictated by the surroundings, or norms are dictated by the societal order, and what is legal and illegal, and virtues. When you hear philosophers talk about virtues, they were defined by the individual or the subject. Okay, then how do you understand if you are observing when it has to do with a relation to another human being, then you have a relation to the observed subject reduced to an object of observation. I think that's like what Foucault said, the signifier and what it signifies. Uh, Something that is a symbol, or is that and what it signifies, that could be sub or themes within an observation, maybe, I don't, but it could be used in that context. And it's written down a lot. Then depending on uh, mm, oh no, that's later, but I'm talking about subcultures as well, and how words have. Now I have thought about Einstein and the theory of relativity, and words have relative meaning depending on the context, depending on life situation and the culture or subculture. So that might affect how you read observations made in another culture or subculture, another culture in a different geographical place or subculture in the same culture. So you are formed by past experience and conclusions and values drawn and made or created. Then the level 2 attention to detail is also relative. If what you are occupied with has a tendency to be a focus in a person's life, but often in an observation you know what to look for. Sometimes you don't know, depending on the subject, depending on the field of science or psychological, with lower degrees of psychology, then it can be more or less defined what you are to focus on and how you are to interpret. But observation, if it is within pedagogy or either you have a model that you observe and then you focus on the details defined by the model, or you do not, which is often the case when it has to do with pedagogy. But of course you look at children's development within the different stages or phases of maturing. But then what you focus on is also subjective. What you see, what you notice, what you have the ability to notice. And there are different factors that limit or does the opposite in relation to observing what or which details or and understanding of details. Again, depending on past and present experiences and also values in relation to experiences. It can also, but when it has to do with observation, you have to put aside personal interests. That's what I'm talking about when I say that you see through eyes of objective, um, uh, unattached from your own life situation and emotions of being a co-human or contra-human. You do not have you have to have a relation to the observed, but you see the relation in the same way. It's very difficult to explain this. It has to do with studying pedagogy and how you observe, and I found out it is impossible to be objective. There's also uh, chemistry between people, and even when it has to do with children, there is that's um, something to pay attention to as well in an observation, and it should be described, in my view, um, because it can affect the objectivity of or yeah or subjectivity of an observation. Personal experiences um, as something you have or a limitation in a lack of experiences can affect your ability to understand and to interpret. And then what are we looking for in an observation? And that can be defined or not defined, or vaguely defined, or the opposite. What is the opposite? Vaguely or strictly defined. So what truth are we looking for in an observation? And who is it to benefit? That's what it does not. Does not. You are not observing for it to benefit yourself or people you have some special interest in pleasing for one reason or the other, or for a promotion or whatever reason there might be. Then truth, then when we are looking for truth, generally speaking, early on people were looking for much more than the case is today, for truth within a religious context or in a religious way, which then later on was not replaced, because the philosophers talked about virtues, which had to do with religion and about how do you live your life, and also about how the soul, how it's you. There was a division. I don't know when that started. Dualism. I don't know if everyone believed at that time that you had a mind or your brain and a soul, or you had a body and a soul, and that parts of your physical existence was connected with something divine. And that's where I think, wasn't it, where scientific thinking started. It all started with philosophy that somehow started to detach itself from a religious uh, seeking for truth, but also a more earthbound way of looking for truths in a microcosmotic way. The macrocosmos, God, and what's the purpose of it all. And then I don't know when it started, but historically, that's I don't know if. Well, I'm not the best historic um, knowledge container. Now we have norms in society, and there are laws, and then there are norms of what do you do not to bother other people with your presence. But when it's not against the laws. And in that, in relation to norms and how not to um, be rejected, that can be one of the things that has to do with norms, but also not to be um, frowned upon or be robbed of possibilities in society. There can be many reasons for, or many I can't find the word, consequences of not fitting into the norm box. And it has been shrinking. Then in a society, there are subcultures and their differentiated norms. There are high society subcultures. There are ghetto subcultures, and the norms are different, which also affects observation, for example, when it has to do with pedagogy and psychology and things like that. Then now I'm moving from, I don't know where I'm moving to. I know where I'm moving to. Now I'm moving to, it's like a kinder egg, this video. Even though it's not legal in America. But I think this kind of kinder egg is I'm trying to make a transition that is smooth and norms. Okay, then from a future perspective, how would you see the present society and the power structures or the power, the institutions of power, and that's where I'm thinking that in order to do that, you have to try to see what has been changing things, symbols and symbols of power and symbols of communication, and in which context the symbols are used, change shape. They are shapeshifters, and they are also smoothly leaving one context as a physical to enter another, and thereby power structures and symbols of power is changed, and more than have been created. Um, for example, there was the halo that was painted. I don't think they were wearing them, but they were symbols of some kind of enlightenment, not the enlightenment of the, when was it, the 18, 1700s, I don't know, remember when, must have been around that time. But something about being connected to something divine, and there was the power to be a prophet, or the power to teach or preach. Then Jesus's halo was replaced with the thorn thing. I don't remember what it's called. That he, I don't know if it's only according to movies, but it's a good symbol anyway. That the halo was replaced with that thing that would hurt, instead of being a symbol of something divine, then some kind of torture symbol. And then the halos with the power to have, that was power relations. It was as if, according to the Bible, that people were not strictly controlled as later on, but had the power to make predictions, to scare the shit out of each other with predictions of terrible predictions about what was going to happen. That was a way to gain power. If people believed it, then it might happen. Like with the witches later on, allegedly, who were allegedly witches. And then the crowns worn by princes and princesses and kings and queens, that was another symbol of power. The regents, or the I don't remember what it's called, royalty, but I don't know if it's the same word in English, but it's the government. It has a resemblance to the word of the power that the kings and queens had, that was removed later on to the government in Europe, and I don't know which other parts of the world. Then the priests in Denmark, they have this white thing around their necks as if it's choking them. But that's where the halo has been. So I think that's a symbol of the disconnection of the body from the mind, and thereby the soul, to not let the drives of the body be to oppress the body, pornographic, sexual drives, and to let the brain, where the connection to the soul that's connected to the divine, that is pure, is situated. Then there are uniforms that different institutions of power wear, and uniforms have also uniformed to be uniform or unification or unified to as some kind of collective social society, but then the uniforms also somewhere they in certain contexts they don't have a meaning, but there are uniforms. In a plane, the people serving, I don't know what they're called, or people working at McDonald's, or uh, bands that wear the same outfit or the same color. Then there's symbols. There are power symbols, communicative symbols, religious symbols, but religious and power are closely connected or were, and then the religion was removed from the power symbols. And then there are symbols to keep the order and structure, like in when you drive your car, and it's red, green, and yellow light, and then now you can get a badge on Facebook when you are part of a group, and it's some kind of if you don't know better, you might be proud to get a badge that somehow is a symbol of belonging to the group or having done something remarkable that others can see you've done, which had a more weight when it has to do with getting symbolic appreciation from the royalties, which you can still have nowadays, but now it's more, it has to do with prestige and meanings of symbols change, and they become less, they have a different meaning, or some symbols change meaning. So I don't know I don't appreciate a badge on Facebook, but maybe young people who are all alike from someone that is a Danish artist like Nick and Jay or something like that. If they gave me a thumbs up, I wouldn't care about it, but maybe other people would, or some other idol that young people like. I don't know. I don't think they that much into Nick and Jay in Denmark, but whatever. I can't see how it changes or affects my life. Or